Hello, Potato. Hopefully, my voice finally sounds a little better because I finally got a microphone. Yep, it's finally happened. But of course, as I've mentioned before, this camera has no windows and no doors. Has no place to plug a microphone in. Which leaves me with this chilling challenge to try to figure out how to get sound from another device to this video. So, yeah, that's something I am trying to do today. So one, hopefully the voice sounds a little bit better and maybe a little bit clearer than it did before. I know it's still my voice and there's only so much you can do about that. But hopefully this is an improvement. And obviously the next thing I will need to invest in to upgrade these videos, aside from, actually developing some talent myself, is a camera that one, autofocuses, and two, lets me plug the microphone directly into it. But that's the future. Today's today. If you remember back, if you've ever looked at the description of this channel, you'll have noticed that it's always said I might just tell you a story. And I haven't done that up to now. The closest we've come to that has been story time with Yoshi during one of the quarantine logs. And that was an experience, wasn't it? But today I'm going to actually tell you one of my stories. So let's all gather around the fire here, and I will read you a story. So before we get into this, there's a couple things I do want to point out. One, while I don't generally curse in this channel, I do curse in my writing. So there may be cursing. In fact, there is cursing in this story. So that may be something you want to consider if you're letting children watch these videos. So the second thing is the origin of this story. There used to be a website called Clever Fiction that would do every week or so, you'd get a challenge, a word or a phrase or a picture that you were supposed to base your story on. And the basis for this story was scary. I think it was around Halloween time. It was Scary Tales Rock. And the third thing is the story is set in the universe of a story I wrote back in a blog novel I wrote back in 2010, 2011 called Mallville, A Journal of the Zombie Apocalypse, which you may guess from the title is a story about a zombie apocalypse. So yes, this is a zombie story. It doesn't directly connect to anything in the events of that story, so you aren't going to miss anything by not having read it, because let's face it, you almost certainly haven't. So, with that stuff out of the way, let us all settle again, getting close to the fire, because it's that time of year where you want to be nice and hot. And listen to Between a Rock and a Dead Place, a Mallville Story. It became clear pretty quickly that despite what they were saying on the TV, getting out of cities was a good idea. Too many people, too many already infected, and way too easy to get trapped in traffic. Civilization was on the decline, and it was a death trap. The military was losing ground every day, and so I grabbed what I could and headed for the hills. Of course, I know nothing about wilderness survival. I parked under some trees far enough away from the road that I couldn't see it, and spent the next 2 weeks hiding in my car and freezing my ass off at night. I hadn't expected to get so cold when the sun went down. It's almost summer. I only had to deal with one Zed during that time. He attacked my car in the middle of the night. I thought he was another survivor at first. He was pretty fresh, and didn't have any of the noticeable broken bones, torn flesh, or blood-stained clothing I've come to expect from Zeds. He looked like his clothes could have used a good washing, but they didn't have that tattered look that so many of the ones on TV and the internet have. After I brained him with the anti-theft device that I keep in my car more for self-defense than for locking the steering wheel, I examined his body. I was really just looking for anything I could use, matches, a lighter, a knife or a gun, etc. But I noticed something odd, as if living corpses were not odd enough on their own. Other than the wounds I caused, it appeared the former Anthony Lawrence, according to the ID in his wallet, had not sustained any injuries. I didn't see so much as a scratch on him, never mind a bite. How did he get infected? I thought you had to be bitten to be infected. I didn't find anything of value on him. His coat looked a lot warmer than what I brought, but it also had a fair amount of that blackish crap that passes for Zed blood all over it by that point. I dragged him away from my car and kicked him down a hill. Sorry, Tony. By the end of the second week, I had run out of food, soda, and water. I had nothing to hunt with. The club may be great against the random ghoul, but I can't get anywhere near close enough to a deer to take a swing at it. Even if I could, I wouldn't know how to clean it, carve it, preserve it. I should have spent more time watching those Doomsday Prepper shows. I did find berries on some shrubs not too far away from my car, but I don't know what is and isn't poisonous. If I wanted to die, there are easier ways to go about it than trying to poison myself with wild berries. I kept looking. Not too far from my car, I found a campsite. There was a single tent, a long cold fire pit, some chairs, a couple of which had been knocked over, and a large tent that was half collapsed and had a ragged gaping hole in it. I thought that this was a Zed attack, but there was no blood on any of the 4 sleeping bags inside the tent. There were clothes, a couple of bottles of water which I took, and some of those berries I had found, but these ones looked like they had been drying out for a few days. I also found a bag. It had SpongeBob SquarePants and his starfish friend on the side of it, a wind-up flashlight, and a multi-tool, among some other stuff that I could not see any use for. I put the water and flashlight in the bag and the tool in my pocket. Water was good. Heck, water is probably the most important thing I can have out here. But I wanted food, too. I kept looking. Maybe those people had a car somewhere with some supplies in it. What I found was even better, or at least that was my first impression. There was a grouping of tents, maybe 24 of them. They were scattered around a clearing next to a rock wall. It was as if I'd found a little village. I was thrilled at the thought of there being more survivors around, until my brain started to realize what I was actually seeing. Much like the first tent I found, most of the ones I could see were badly damaged and looked abandoned. The difference was the ones I looked in were not clean like the one nearer my car. There was dried blood all over the place. I didn't see any movement around me, so I decided to see if there was anything I could use. The first tent I looked in had a rifle lying next to a sleeping bag that was stained with dried blood. There was also a big black backpack. Looking in the pack briefly, I saw that it had a couple of those packets of emergency foil blankets and waterproof matches on top. I would have kept looking, but I heard a noise outside. I emerged from the tent with the rifle in one hand, the pack hanging by the strap in the other. I expected to see maybe the tent's owner. Nothing says the blood was necessarily his, right? Wanting to know why I was rooting around in his tent. For all I know, maybe it was the tent's owner, but he was not interested in the reasoning for my doing anything if it was. He was probably a handsome guy before someone ate a good portion of his throat. The right side of his red checked flannel shirt was dyed almost black with dried blood. I raised the rifle and pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. The trigger didn't move. I looked at the gun stupidly as the man stumbled towards me. I was planning to use the butt of the rifle as a club when I saw the little button sticking out of the gun's body near the trigger. I pressed the button, and it popped out the other side of the body, where it showed bright red. I took aim again and fired. Now, I'm not a hunter. I don't belong to the NRA, and the last time I fired a gun, it shot paintballs. Keeping this in mind, my first shot missed the Zed completely. My second took him in the chest, which is basically the same as missing him completely. The third hit just slightly to the left of the bridge of his nose, and down it went. I was feeling pretty pleased with myself until I saw them. The gunshot must have gotten their attention because 3 Zeds came stumbling out of the trees and into the clearing. I decided that it might be a good time to retreat to my car and hope they didn't follow me. I turned to head away from the zombies, only to find a couple more coming up from behind me, from the direction of my car. I could see more off in the woods, shambling towards me as well. Now maybe I could have run around them and gotten away clean. Or maybe I would have tripped on an exposed tree root like a sorority girl in a bad horror film and become their dinner. Since my life has been a little too much like a bad horror film lately, I decided to go the other way, towards the rock wall. I used to do some rock climbing as a teenager, and thought this would be an easy climb. I could see a small ledge not too far up I could get to. Last I heard, Zed had trouble climbing stairs, so I figured I'd be safe up there until I could climb all the way to the top. It was only maybe 40 feet up. I could find my way down from there. I got up onto the little ledge just fine with the rifle, SpongeBob bag, and black backpack all trying to pull me down. The Zeds followed me. I don't know if they could see me, or smell me, or just hear me panting, but they certainly knew I was there. They couldn't reach me, though. Even the longest of their rotting arms came a good foot short of my safe spot. This presented me with a new problem, though. Try as I might, I could not find any place to climb up from. The wall here looks almost like it was sculpted to be an actual wall, instead of a naturally occurring rock formation. I figured I was screwed unless I can find a way up, because the Zeds aren't going anywhere, and I used the last 4 bullets in the rifle, killing 2 of them. Killing those 2 seems to attract even more of the damned things. I guess a lot of people thought running off into the woods was a good idea. Or Zeds followed people like me out here somehow. Whatever brought them out here, shooting off a gun seems to have brought every cursed one of them to my feet. Again, I was screwed, save for the moment up here with my bags, some scrubby grass that I might have to eat if it comes to it, and a scattering of loose rocks. There's enough room for me to lie down and sleep up here, but I doubt I'll really be able to do that. With nothing better to do, I decided to take stock of my supplies. 1 SpongeBob tote bag, 2 bottles Bevel Aqua bottled water, 1 wind-up flashlight, 1 multi-tool, 1 wallet containing completely useless cash and credit cards, 1 receipt that has gone through the wash at least once and may have originally been from Burger Bro, 1 hunting rifle with no ammunition. As depressing as that little inventory was, I was in better shape with the backpack. The pamphlet in the bag says it is a deluxe emergency bug-out pack. It contains 30 water purification tablets, 18 protein bars, 3 books of waterproof matches, 6 foil emergency blankets, 4 dust masks, 1 magnesium fire starter, 1 container steel wool, 2 bright orange plastic ponchos, 2 chemical heat packs, 1 multi-tool, so hey, I have 2 of those now, 1 solar wind-up flashlight, nicer than the other one, but smaller, 1 first aid kit with adhesive bandages, antiseptic gel, and tweezers, 3 rolls of gauze, 2 maxi pads, 2 pairs of work gloves, 12 wet naps, 1 bracelet that claims to be made out of 100 feet of paracord, 1 pouch of metal BBs, 1 slingshot. Now, when I say slingshot, I don't mean one of those Dennis the Menace Y-shaped sticks with rubber bands strung on it. This thing is metal with a plastic pistol grip handle, it has a wrist brace, and the rubber is thick, super stretchy stuff with a little leather pouch in the middle to hold your shot. My first thought was to use the multi-tools to try and chip away at the rock and make myself some handholds and footholds to climb up. That could take days, though, and I will run out of protein bars and water before then. Plus, what if I slip and fall? Best case scenario, I break my leg on this ledge and lay here till I starve. Worst case scenario, I deliver myself to my waiting fans like a turkey dropped out of a helicopter. Then I decided to check out that slingshot. I mean, that's a weird thing to put in an emergency kit, right? A slingshot? What's it supposed to be there for? In whose fantasy did they believe that they were going to be hunting wild game and defending themselves with a slingshot? Still, I decided to open up the little pouch of BBs. They were too big for an air rifle, but a little bit smaller than a marble. The sun shined off of their little metal surfaces. I took one of the metal balls out, hit the braces of the slingshot against my forearm, placed the ball in the little metal sling, and pulled back. Damn if that BB didn't go right through the Zed's neck and out the backside. It didn't sever the spine or anything useful, but holy crap, it worked as a weapon. Of course, my skill with a slingshot is pretty much equal to my skill with a rifle, but I did manage to kill 5 of the Zeds before I ran out of the BBs. I'm not feeling down about it, though. I'm feeling pretty confident, actually. I figure I can make this water last a couple days, and the protein bars should last at least that long. I just need to take my time and kill all the Zeds before climbing down. The rock wall is not all that hard. I am able to chip away at it pretty easily with the needle-nose pliers on the multi-tools. I may not be willing to try and carve myself whole so I can climb up out of here, but that doesn't mean doing a little mining with them is not useful. You see, the thing about slingshots is they don't really care what you fire out of them. You could use BBs, metal nuts, coins, or even rocks. And I have plenty of rocks. Alright, that was our first story time here at Void of Intelligence story. Between a rock and a dead place, a Mallville tale. If you're interested in checking out Mallville, let me tell you what it is. So, Mallville was something I did as a result of having not written for a number of years, and I'm kind of in that place again. I've been doing videos to try to still do something creative, but I've written like 1 story in the last year. But Mallville, I decided to challenge myself. I was going to release a new chapter of Mallville as I wrote it. Originally, it was going to be once per week, but very quickly the chapters started to get very long, and it became a bi-weekly thing. But still, I released them as I wrote them. I generally was never more than a chapter ahead. The story went on a lot longer than I thought it would, and I believe it's still out there to view if you want to read it. It is first draft. It's very rough, but if you want to read it, I believe the address was mallvillestory.blogspot.com. I'll put it in the description if it's still active. I don't think they shut them down, but I haven't checked into any of my blogs in a good number of months. This story, of course, originally appeared on Clever Fiction, which is no longer in existence. So the story is no longer up for reading. I think there's actually a link to it on my old blog, which now doesn't go to anything because that website is gone. So I hope you enjoyed this. If it doesn't sound like complete and utter garbage, we'll be doing more of these at some point during the life of this channel. Maybe even tomorrow. Who knows? But I do think there will be something tomorrow, whether it's this or something else. So I will see you in the next video.